Hey everybody, a couple days ago I was at the shop working on a bike and I had the issue was that it wouldn't downshift from the big ring to the small ring, and so I thought it would be an interesting thing to kind of just diagnose and just do some video footage of the repair. So I went ahead and just filmed it, and so yeah, that's the basic gist of this video here. And if basically, from what I've found, there's generally 4 things that can cause this issue. And granted, that's if everything was working okay to start. Originally it was shifting fine at one point, and then the bike got set aside for a while. It's common, and then it doesn't shift when you get back to it, or for whatever reason it just quit shifting correctly. So basically, I've broken it down into 4 common things. This isn't really going to cover if you're just starting one from scratch. There could be all kinds of different things that may or may not need to be done there, so we'll cover that another time. But this is basically just going to cover if it was working fine at one point, and then it quit working. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. Okay, so typically when you start, you're going to diagnose it and check what's going on. It's obviously, I don't have a crank on this bike, but we're just going to assume it's caught up in the big ring, and so you want to just check and see if you're getting a click within the shifter. And this is a bike that I figured to be a good candidate. It's been hanging here in my garage for a year or so, and I did a video a little while back on how to fix a sticky rapid fire shifter, and basically this same internal, so it's kind of the same thing to repair that situation. But this bike is kind of semi borderline. It's engaging here, but occasionally I can see right there I threw it all the way and I'm basically getting no action. So that would be issue 1. We just have a gunked up shifter. Every now and then though, this one will catch. See, I can feel it catch there, and then we're getting our clicks down. So if that would have been the issue on this particular one, I probably would have just shot some WD-40 or something here in the little port, or there's lots of little cracks and things where you can shoot some penetrating oil inside of there, and just if you have some compressed air, blow it out and then just work it, and typically that solves that issue there. So but just let's say we're in that position there, and you go to shift this and everything just feels locked up, where you can't even move any of the lever buttons, which this is an Ultegra, but it's common on this one and the 105, where you have it'll work with a double or a triple, and they'll usually say triple on there, but I know a lot of bikes came spec'd with these that just had a double chain ring. So what can happen sometimes is if the cable maybe is slightly loose, and riding along and shifted up to the big ring, it's kind of hesitating, and kind of or it's not quite up in there, and so what happens is it's just instinctive to keep pushing on the shift. I mean, it feels like it will shift, and there's actually another click there. So what can happen is that'll actually click up into a 3rd position, although there's only 2, and so it basically just kind of jams everything up, and it's very difficult to click the small lever over. So sometimes you can kind of force that over, but normally the safest bet is just to basically at this point is to undo your pinch bolt on the front derailleur and take all that tension off, and then you should be able to just shift it back down, hook up your shift cable there, and you should be good to go. So that's 2 issues there. The 4th one is common on a triple front derailleur. That's that little return spring there. That's very, very common for that little return spring to break. Yeah, it's super common on these derailleurs for that little spring perch to break. I think it happens if it gets stored just right there, that little piece it breaks off that holds the end of the spring. But I think if they sit for a long time in the big ring, it can just cause that thing to break off. Really, the only cure is to replace it, but screwing these little set screws in here, and these things make great little 1x conversion, kind of like a little chain guide, so they work really well for that. That's about the only purpose. I have a bucket of these things up at the shop that we'll use them for this every now and then. And so that's the third thing. The fourth thing is, let's say you shift your shifter down, you get some cable slack in the cable there, but it just doesn't want to drop down, and you can manually try to move this thing back and forth when it's on the bike, shift it all the way down. And if it just doesn't move, it's sticky. Like I have this one here, it's a common issue with just getting Gatorade or sweat and things like that. Typically it happens if I see a lot of bikes that they ride in the big ring all the time and sit there for extended periods riding and getting junk caught up in them. So what you want to do first is basically, I like to basically just remove it off the bike. It's probably the easiest way to work on it. Sometimes you can shoot some whatever Windex WD-40 and work it a little bit, but basically unhook the shift cable first off, and then back off both of the limit screws, and that basically allows you to increase the range of movement there, so you can work it back and forth and try to break this thing free. So kind of what I did on this one before, off camera, I soaked it in hot water for a while, shot some Windex in it. That's what I'm right here, shooting a little Windex in there, and that works really good to break up Gatorade, stuff like that. Actually, it works better than a lot of heavy solvents and things like that. But usually I'll start off with that, work it a little bit, work it in some hot water. If that doesn't work, I'll go to some more, start going to the heavier duty stuff. And so I'm going to shoot some finish line speed degreaser in here, work it a little bit with that. And then I've kind of had some pretty good success rate on a lot of these. I've made a little tool that we used up at the shop to hook these up to, and kind of basically just smack them around a little bit, and that seems to probably about a 90% success rate on the really sticky ones. Some of them are just so far gone you just have to replace the front derailleur. But basically this big bar here, and I've mounted a braze on. We can just bolt the derailleurs right up to that and do the same thing. Otherwise you can just clamp it. I think this is one of the 31/8 clamps, so it works pretty good. I'd put a little shim in there just to get it to work. But basically you'll just clamp that, and you want to remove the pinch bolt or the cable pinch bolt, or kind of cinch it down. Otherwise it'll end up working itself loose there. But basically you'll shoot some penetrating oil or your speed degreaser, and just whack it there on the top of where the bolt is, and kind of got it off camera, and it's starting to return a little bit here. You can see it's you whack it down, and it basically what happens, you smack it down like that and it returns up, and we're about halfway there now. It's starting to kind of through the midway, it's starting to, that spring is overcoming the all the friction in the little pivots there. That's basically what happens. Just the pivots get junk caught in them, maybe gets corroded from sweat, and then they just seize up. So smack it around like that it works really well just in that bar. You don't want to, it's not something you want to do on your frame. You don't want to damage your frame. So that works pretty well. And once you get it broke pretty free, I'll usually clean it all off, get all the penetrating oil and stuff, and then shoot something a little more substantial like this green finish line lube, and let that kind of sit in and soak in for a few minutes, and then just really work it in, wipe off the excess, and then put it back on the bike, bolt it up, and you should be good to go. Just make sure you really work that thing through. I've had a few that seemed like they were good, and then a month or so later they went back to where they were. So really work that thing through, and tends to work really well. So just make sure once you get it back on there, you get your set screws set back correctly, and your cable tension and everything else. So yeah, that's I don't know, like I say, I've had about a 90% success rate on this. So yeah, hopefully you found the video helpful, and yeah, thanks for watching.